Solana has been racing up. I want to talk about Solana with a Solana expert that was buying at the bottom of the bear market, along with some of the top news. We'll be looking at charts, we'll be looking at macro, we'll be looking at a lot. If you want to trade Solana, I have placed a Solana trade that was pretty well timed for sure. You can check out the link to Margex underneath the video. You can trade all different kinds of cryptos there, including Solana. You can also trade Bitcoin, and the market is racing up. You may want to sign up now, try it out, see if you like it. Of course, make sure you know what you're doing. And we are having a guest on today, Tyler Hill. I'll put a link to his second channel now where he goes over the market in a little bit more fundamental detail. It's a smaller channel than his main channel, so go give it some love right underneath the video. He's doing daily videos over there. Tyler, thanks so much for coming back on the channel. I'm glad to have you here as the resident Solana expert and TA expert. Thanks so much for coming back on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, links underneath the video to your channel. Okay, crypto seems to be bouncing hard. Obviously, depending on when people are watching this, who knows? We could be back at 40,000 by then. Just kidding. But like, who knows what happens? But right now, it's bouncing really well, almost hitting 60K. What do you think about this bounce?
It looks somewhat normal to me, and I've been saying it a lot, man, on the channel over the last couple of days. I posted a video on Sunday, this recent Sunday, just talking about the fact that where we were was one of the most ridiculously oversold places I've seen in a long time. Sure, it's not the best news, right? World recessions, things like that. Sure, it wasn't the best news, but the fact that throughout the last 390 days, we had not seen the crypto market in extreme fear. Statistically, we've not seen it in extreme fear, nor had we seen the weekly RSIs become that oversold, more than maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 365, 390 days. The fact that we got that low as a result of that, I was just screaming on my channel, like, guys, this is ridiculous. The odds of us ripping to the upside are high because what was happening, man. The liquidations that we were seeing to the upside were so insane. There's something that I like to look at called the liquidation map. And it shows how many liquidations there are to the upside compared to the downside. And the scale was like weighted like this. I'm like, everyone's so sure we're going to crash. This thing might just rip and start liquidating and squeezing all these people out. And sure enough, that's where we are. It's been ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And obviously anyone that jumped into the burning building seemed to have done really well. I know I placed, I think, 4 different longs. The best one's up about 500%. And that's after I took some profits. And then the worst one's up like 30%. I think it's an ETH long, but hey, I'll take it for a couple days. Obviously Solana's bouncing really hard too. I think it's up. I didn't check the price just now, but it's up like, what, 50% from the bottom?
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And so we actually got some good news, and I'll go ahead and share that real quick. We did get some good news earlier today. I think this was a little bit earlier today, that the Solana ETF was approved by the Brazilian SEC. Now, I don't think that this should have had as much of an effect on Solana as it did personally. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But what I do know in this crypto space is dominoes fall, right? And so once you start to see one country doing something, oftentimes if it's a well-respected country, especially from a political perspective, which Brazil kind of is, kind of isn't, it starts to cause the dominoes to fall in other places. And so it wouldn't shock me if we start to see other smaller countries maybe start to pick up momentum as well. Not going to make a huge difference, but overall, fundamentally, it is just good. It's a good thing, a good feeling, good energy, whatever you want to call it, especially coming out of what we were just in. Now, from a technical perspective, this is, it's as phenomenal of as a pump as we've seen in a while. So what I was been paying attention to a ton on the channel quite recently was the fact that Solana was what we call, in a bullish structure, many would say. So of course, you're at the top of an uptrend. You create some of these lower highs, higher lows. You have a bit of a symmetrical structure here to some degree. Oftentimes, you're going to break to the upside. That's just normally what happens. Now, Solana's been ahead of the market. And so as a result of that, Solana actually broke out of this macro structure back in the last week of July, early beginning of the last week of July. But obviously speaking, the market started to turn down. We started to see Bitcoin really start to take a hit. And of course, in a moment like this, in which we are still in Bitcoin season, if Bitcoin season crashes, everything's going down with it. Now, as a result of that, what ended up happening was that this breakout that we saw turned into a fake out. And fake outs are very bad. Everyone knows that. If you're in a bullish structure and you fake out and fall back within your structure, that's real bad. And the likelihood of you breaking to the downside and clearing the bottom side of that structure goes up to about 60, 70%, historically speaking, within bull markets. But obviously, it's not objective bull markets. But anyway, so we had the breakout to the downside. In this moment, we started to see more signals than I've ever seen in my life for Solana, since the FTX crash at least, that we were getting oversold. Everything was saying this is way too much for Solana. There's no reason we come all the way down here. And so price recovery, boom, back into the structure, double fake out. And the beautiful part about it, and the reason why I think everything is so bullish right now, for Solana especially, is because when you have a double fake out in a bullish structure, it actually increases your chances of breaking to the upside. Because oftentimes what happens is that you invalidate. So this fake out invalidates the bearishness of this fake out. So you have a double invalidation there. They kind of cross each other out. But since we're deeper into the bullish structure, the further you go into one of these, the more likely it is that you break to the upside. And so technically, if you get a double fake out, oftentimes you're deeper into the structure and your chances of going up, breaking through this, go higher and higher. And so as a result, seems like people are buying. People are jumping back into meme coins as well. I mean, we can see on DeFi Llama, we had a bit of a dip, but people are jumping right back into memes, right back into the Solana ecosystem. TVL's climbing by the millions, millions, tens of millions at a time, putting us in a real good spot for Solana right now. So overall, expected. Definitely figured that we could see some type of pump, and that's why we were doing a ton of buying down here. I remember you and I even spoke about that. Next step is just really just getting the break out of the structure, really.
Now, do you think we can fall back down there? That's $1 million question. Like, if someone's looking at Solana right now and they want to buy, is it still a deal at 160 because it went up to 220, or is it like, hey, I can probably get it a little bit cheaper? That's $1 million question, of course.
Sure. Yeah. Midterm is definitely short term. Midterm definitely looking a little spooky to me right now. It's like, if I'm gonna buy Solana right now, if I want to buy some Solana and I missed the bottom, I missed all of this, and I was trying to buy, I personally wouldn't be buying until we get a clear break of this structure. And the reason being is that when you are in a structure in which your resistance is descending, you are guaranteed to go down. It is 100% a guarantee that while you're in this, you're going to go down. So if I'm sitting right near the top of it, maybe even to a point in which we break above this by the time this video goes live, I would rather just be waiting for us to get above this thing. I would want to see the breakout here, because if we don't get a little bit higher, we might go a lot a bit lower. And so because of that, obviously, yeah, there is a risk of rolling. There is a risk of coming back down. We look at the Bollinger Bands. We are at that 20 simple moving average on the daily charts here. 20-day SMA is a strong, strong thing. Support, resistance on multiple occasions. So 20 SMA, knowing it's there. We obviously have the RSI that is giving us a little bit of a spooky reading because we're still where we are, but we've already cleared that 50% threshold. So running a little bit fast. And so I surely would be waiting for the breakout here before buying. I wouldn't be buying in the short or midterm under the structure. Long term, I still think Solana's clearing 250, possibly even this year. So I don't think, if you're willing to withstand a possible pullback, yeah, I think buying here is totally fine.
So you think 165 ish? Do we have to go back down, touch it, and then jump up from that line, or do you buy it as soon as it breaks by a couple dollars?
So personally speaking, the approach that I'm taking is I'm actually just going to do like a multi-step purchase. Okay. So the first purchase that I would do is just a little bit if we do break the level. The second purchase that I would do is determined by what happens next. Option number one is that if Solana's price just keeps going up, so say hypothetically we do this, okay, the next thing that I'm going to be understanding is that, look, we're going to try to create some type of resistance here. Since we got the fake out and established resistance here, Solana is going to try to stop here. That's just what's going to happen. It's how it always happens. And so knowing that there's limited upside here, I'm not going to do a ton of buying right here, or maybe even right here. And so my game plan currently is I'm going to do a little bit of buying right here. Say hypothetically, let me get rid of this. Let me just show you what this option will look like. If Solana just does this, boom, which unlikely, but possible, I'd buy a little bit here and wait to deploy more once we finally clear this structure. If Solana's price does this, I'm going to buy a little bit here, a little more here, and then save the rest to buy once we clear the structure. And so the reason I would do it like that is because a successful back test establishes even more of a foundation, even more of support, and the likelihood of continuing upwards is higher. Therefore, I would want to invest more. And so I'm not doing all of my buying the moment we break out, because again, we're going to try to create a trend here. That's just how this is going to go. But obviously, I think since this is just a fake out trend, we have a good chance of breaking it, even if it looks something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Now, obviously, we're looking at Sol versus the US dollar there, Tether. Obviously, it's shown a lot of strength versus even other alts. Have you looked at the Sol ETH chart recently?
Yeah. So we actually are getting new all-time highs, and you pointed that out to me earlier today. I mean, it's not shocking. Oftentimes when you're in these types of markets, when you have more of a high risk, high reward asset, but just in general, that asset in which we're talking about in this case, Solana, is a growing ecosystem, it's so likely to outperform something like Ethereum. But the issue is that people say, well, that makes it better than ETH. And as a certified Solana bull, right? I would even go out to say that this is just an unfair way of viewing it, because Ethereum is sacrificing gains for the increase of, an increase of stability, one, which recently things have been a little bit up and down, don't get me wrong. But two, it's the safety. ETH isn't going anywhere. Solana still has days where it crashes and goes down. You can't send transactions. And so what you have to understand is that, sure, yes, Solana is outperforming Ethereum. It doesn't technically make it better, because you need to kind of gauge the difference between, okay, I'm going to make more here, but I'm going to risk more because of the possibility of it crashing, going down, et cetera. And so it is outperforming ETH. It is setting a new all-time high, and that's not surprising because it is amazing. One, whatever. But two, quite simply just because you're taking a bit of a bigger risk. But the thing about it, the longer we go into Solana, the older it gets, the less risky it's going to get, the more stable it's going to get. And it wouldn't shock me if this outperformance continues to happen even after that. So it's definitely been interesting, to say the least. Solana has to be the number one altcoin this year. Simple as that.
Yeah, guys, if you're watching this, Tyler did buy Solana when it was the bottom of the bear market, when it looked the darkest, when other people were dumping. So, like I said, go follow his channel, give him a like there on his last video, subscribe. If you are feeling bullish, we're going to get into some more stuff here, but if you're feeling bullish, there's that link to Margex to start trading. Ethereum is actually moving up a decent amount with this push on Bitcoin. I don't know if you've been watching it. It's almost 2,600, but still 4 times the size of Solana. You mentioned Solana is the number one alt. Do you consider Ethereum as an altcoin? And do you think Solana can continue this rally against Ethereum and keep on breaking to the upside? Or do you think it's just like the strength that it's had this year versus all other alts is almost a bad thing for it? Like if you look at something that's hitting its bottom against Bitcoin, Ethereum is nowhere near that, but there are so many alts that have just decreased so much in value that some people are going to like dumpster dive for these alts, but you have to buy at a very high price for Solana. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that Solana can continue to outperform Ethereum, but I do think that we're going to see it even out a little bit. Right, because there are certain things that are going to happen with Solana that are going to stabilize a little bit more. The bigger it gets, the bigger its market cap, the less volatile it's going to be. One thing that I do know about Solana, I can turn that off for a second. One thing that I do know about Solana is the majority of people who hold it and trade it want high returns. And so the moment that Solana's price maybe isn't giving them 100%, 300%, 500%, they might go somewhere else. They might want to ride that next wave up. Maybe they're looking for a Caspa. Maybe they're looking for a Jasmine. I don't think Solana's community is as dedicated as something like ETH. And so as a result of that, it wouldn't shock me, as the bigger it gets, the more likely it becomes the volatility slows down. And therefore, the likelihood is that the performance against ETH does kind of even out a little bit. I think we're setting a new all-time high for Sol ETH right now, Solana versus Ethereum. It wouldn't shock me if we do start to see ETH in the short term start to recover a little bit. I never really see pairs create all-time highs without some sort of retracement. And so I do think that maybe shifting some funds into ETH wouldn't be a terrible idea, especially considering what we are seeing from a technical perspective. And I can pop that up real quick. So looking at ETH, one thing that I'm paying the most amount of attention to is the fact that it did something that's incredibly hard to do. And what it did was it fell out the bottom side of a descending structure at the top of a very strong macro uptrend, and it's still out there. And so to me, it's like, and this isn't, this is based off of more of a hunch. If I just remove all of this and I'm just purely guessing and speculating, it feels to me like Ethereum might run. It feels to me like Ethereum, if it can successfully re-enter back within the structure, do not establish this previous point of support into some sort of resistance. We don't want an SR flip. We want a double S. We want that support to support. If we can get back up here, I mean, we could be looking at an ETH that's going to come back to retest 3,000, 3,250. I mean, that could be a gnarly run for ETH of, 20, 25%. And so that type of move puts it in a spot where it outperforms Solana for a little while, and that would be the retracement on Sol ETH that I would be thinking of. So it might. I don't know. I don't usually see cryptos in bull markets fall out of macro bullish structure and stay outside of it. It just doesn't usually happen. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much that's been happening just on a fundamental basis with ETH ETFs and with Grayscale just dumping a ton. There's been a lot, obviously, like the Sol spot ETF that just got pushed through, the XRP news from yesterday that labeled it non-security. There's so much going on in the altcoin space. It's hard to know how everything is going to end up. But Yeah, I mean, so far it's been a good time to be Bitcoin heavy, but obviously altcoins will have their day, especially if we start going into a higher liquidity situation and rates start coming down. Okay, final thought. How much Solana is the goal? Like, if someone, a normal person, buying some Solana for this bull run, what can make a difference? I like going through this. I know it's a little bit arbitrary because, you know, everyone's got a different situation. They've got credit card debt or they don't have credit card debt. They
Sure.
have a certain salary, but like, what is a good goal for just a normal person viewing? And maybe it's
Sure.
like a percentage of their net worth, however you want to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of moved to the trend now of like 15 Solana is a great place to try to get to. Now, that's not cheap. That's not easy. That's not that. And again, it's arbitrary. Like you said, it's not one of those things where it's going to be applicable to anyone. I have more than 15 Solana, but some people might only have half a Solana. And that doesn't make one person better than another. It just means that situations are different. But if I was going to set a goal personally, my general goal is like, okay, I think Solana is likely to see somewhere between $500 to $600 one day. When I honestly don't know. This is probably one of the most uncertain periods in crypto that we've ever had, just from the sense that things are not as certain as they seem, right? Presidential election, don't know. If Trump wins, probably going to go well for crypto. If Kamala Harris wins, you would immediately think it might not go well for crypto, but it could still not change too much, right? You have so many things. You have interest rates that are going to come down at the same time that people might go into a recession. So things are so uncertain that when Solana gets there, you don't really know. But I do think it'll get there. I have high conviction it'll get there. I have no plans of selling my entire bag until we get there. I will take profits along the way, obviously. And so with that in mind, I think 15 Solana puts you in a good spot, right? To where it's like, okay, if you have 15 Solana, and look, I don't have my calculator up here, but say if you have 15 Solana, we're sitting at a $500 price point, that puts you at $7,500. You're likely going to be up somewhere around $3,000-$4,000 on that, and that's a beautiful return. Getting a return like that on a crypto that's inside the top 4, top 5 is not easy, and so because of that, I think that's a stable, easy on a grand perspective goal to reach out rather than like, you know, 100. Because I remember we made a video similar to this when Solana was at like $20, and I was telling people, you know, I want 100, I want 150 Solana, and now you can see, you know, so it's I would say 15 is a good number to start with.
Yeah. Nice. And the fact is too, if you're well diversified and you have 15 as well, I mean, that's almost 5 figures of Solana. If we hit $500, that's $7,500, right? After taxes and after you sell some Bitcoin maybe or some Ethereum, unless you just want to hold it forever or whatever, you're going into the hopefully not, I don't know, the bear market with 5 figures to put back into crypto. And I think once you get in that like second cycle, third cycle, that's where you really make a lot of money. And yeah, if you can play it right the first cycle, it gives you a lot of chips to work with the next cycle. Tyler, thank you so much for coming on. Any final thoughts before we jump out?
Just keep your heads on tight, because I know things where we're at right now. We're seeing tens of millions of liquidations every hour to the upside and the downside. We're seeing moves up, we're seeing moves down. These are the times where people lose the most. So if you're certain about things, understand you're probably somehow wrong. And even if you're right, you're probably wrong, you know. And so making sure that right now you are playing as cautious as you possibly can will by a far lead you to more gains than anything else. It is now the time to be cautious. Now is not the time to oh, well, the market has to move up now. We're on the way to 70K, 100x leverage, unless you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, keep it chill. That's the major advice I've been given over on the channel, and I think it's worked real well since then so far.
I like it. Yep. The most aggressive trade I did was a 20x right at 49.5, which was good timing. Part of it was luck. Part of it was just, you know, there's a lot of resistance and support there. But besides that, everything else was 3 to 5x. So yeah, obviously I would be fine if the 20x got liquidated. That was a risk I was willing to take, and it's paid off well. Now it's up like 500%. But yeah, if I think the problem is a lot of people will do that, and then they'll get liquidated, and then they'll try it again. They'll get liquidated, and they'll stop. And then that's when you really should be like doing it again. Like you have to. I know some of our friends do it 4 or 5 times on 50x leverage and continue to get wicked out, and then finally catch it, and it makes up for it. One of our friends actually did a 500x short and made a ton of money on it. I'm not saying to do that, but one of our friends did that when we were at Bitcoin Nashville. But Tyler, thanks so much. Appreciate you. Links underneath the video. Go check out Margex and check out Tyler's link, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.